Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is peek, and this verb was suggested by the viewer David. So thank you so much for that suggestion. Now let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or the ways that we can use this verb. The first way you might hear peek used means to look quickly, and typically this is done in a secretive manner. So, one of the questions that a viewer had about this verb was comparing it with peer. And so you might remember yesterday, peer had something a bit more to do with taking kind of a longer look where you're trying to understand something, maybe trying to read or find something. What makes this verb a little bit different is the emphasis on the quickness and that it might be done secretively. So you're trying to take a look, but not be noticed or not have others know that you're looking. A second way the verb peek gets used can mean to protrude slightly so as making something just a little bit visible. Right? You might think of something sticking out, maybe something one can see through. We'll see a few more examples of that a little later in this video. For now, you should know that peek is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all you need to do is add ing, and that forms peeking. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb, peek, ends in an unvoiced K sound. This means the ed ending is just going to make a T sound, and you're not going to add an extra syllable as you say it. So the past tense and the participle forms of our verb should sound like this. Peaked, peaked. Okay. Now there are actually a number of phrasal verbs connected to this verb of the day, so we'll be focusing on those and I'll try and do a little verb tense review as we go along. The first phrasal verb you might encounter is to peek at something. This generally means someone is trying to get a quick and sometimes a rather sneaky look at someone or something. So here, sneaky, again, the idea is that it's a bit more secretive, right? You don't want others to know, or maybe you're not supposed to be looking at something, but you still are attempting to. So an example of how you might hear it used might be, don't peek at the answers. I know as a teacher, I have said this several times over my teaching career. So different books might have answers in the back of them, or there might be other students' answers, right, where people try and get a quick look. Here, this don't peek at, again, is an imperative. It's a command, so there's no stated subject. I'm telling some person, so you, singular, or you, plural, to not do a particular action. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to peek in or peek into. The meaning here means to peer, glimpse, or glance into something quickly or shyly. Now, I know we're using a verb from yesterday in that definition, peer. I'm going to emphasize, though, that glimpse and glance, again, are about quick looks. So keep that in mind here as we look at our example sentence. We peeked into the conference room and left quickly when we realized there was already an ongoing meeting. Here's a simple past tense sentence, right? So someone is kind of suggesting, right? Kind of maybe tilted their head and looked into the room, saw that there were people, right? And left. So they took a quick look. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to peek in on. So again, the idea here is to go into someplace, have a quick or cursory look at someone or something. So an example of this. I'm going to peek in on the baby and make sure she's still sleeping. Right? This is a sentence I know many parents, probably babysitters as well, will use. So this is a simple future. We're using be going to talk about someone's plan. So here, maybe a parent is saying, right, I'm going to go into the room where the baby is sleeping, check, is the baby still sleeping? And then leave. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to peek out from. I believe this can have a couple meanings. The first we're going to discuss is to reveal one's eyes and peer out from under something or from behind something. Again, we might think of a small child kind of playing games, maybe trying to hide. And so if you could maybe see just a little bit of their body, you might say, is someone peeking out from under the bed? This is an example of a present progressive or present continuous question, yes or no question. So we're asking a question about something that is happening now. Let's continue looking at our phrasal verbs. The second way to use peek out from means to be revealed in a small spot when most of some person or something is being concealed or hidden. An example of this might be some of the old yellow paint is peeking out from the corner of the wall. Okay. So there's another present progressive sentence. This time it is affirmative or positive. And in this sentence, what we're describing or what we're talking about is maybe the wall has been painted some other color. Maybe it's white, maybe it's blue, maybe it's green. But in one place in the corner, we can see a little small spot of yellow. Whereas most of the other yellow paint is being concealed or hidden by the new paint. Another phrasal verb you might encounter is to peek out of. This can also have a couple different meanings. One is to glance or peer outward shyly and or quickly from inside of something. An example of this: the children peeked out of their classroom when they heard laughter and celebrations. Here's another simple past tense sentence. We can kind of imagine, right? People want to know, well, why is someone else having fun? Why aren't we having fun? What's going on, right? So they're going to take a quick glance to understand what's happening. A second way peek out of gets used means to be revealed partially from within something. An example of this: some bushy tails are peeking out of the bushes. Okay. That's another present progressive or present continuous sentence, right? Here, maybe we're trying to figure out what animal or which animals are there. The last phrasal verb we'll discuss today is to peek through. This can also have a couple different meanings. One way to use it is to peer, glimpse, or glance through something. And again, that emphasis is that it's being done quickly. An example of this: the child peeked through the curtains to see the guests who were visiting. There's another simple past tense sentence describing a completed action, right? You can imagine sometimes curtains are made from fabric that is sheer, that you can see through, or something very lightweight, again. So that kind of idea of they're trying to hide themselves. Maybe they're a little bit shy, not so excited about meeting people or talking with people they don't know, but they still kind of want to know who's here, what's going on. The last way to use peek through means to be revealed partially through or from behind of something. An example of that: their undergarments were peeking through their outfit. Right? So again, the idea is like they could be seen, they were visible. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb peek. And the first word we're going to discuss today is just the noun form of this word. So the noun peek has the exact same spelling and the exact same pronunciation. Generally, when we use it as a noun, we're talking about a quick or a secretive look at something. An example of this: she took a peek at her friend's text, right? So kind of means, right? Quick look. Who are you talking to? What are you saying? Right? So trying to get maybe some information. Another related word you might encounter is peekaboo. This is also a noun. It's the name of a game that is frequently played with young children. And generally, what happens in this kind of silly game is the adult sort of hides behind something. Could be as simple as their hands, maybe a little bib or a blanket or something, and then lowers it, right, and kind of reappears. And they tend to say as they do this, peekaboo, right? And they're again doing this with a child who's maybe a little less than a year, maybe slightly over a year old. But an example of this, he can be amused for hours with peekaboo, right? So some children really enjoy it. Others maybe not so much, but that is something you might encounter. Now, lastly, what I want to talk about are two more words that have the exact same pronunciation as today's verb, but they have different meanings. So, the first thing I want to note today is that P-E-A-K, again, same pronunciation. So, we're going to pronounce it with that long E sound, peak, but it's a different word. You're most likely, I think, going to see it as a noun. And when we use this word as a noun, we're talking about the highest point of something. So he climbed to the mountain's peak, right? To the top of the mountain. That's what's meant by it. There's a third word in English that also has the same pronunciation, P-I-Q-U-E, and it's pronounced peak. And again, I think you're most likely going to see it used as a verb. It could be a noun, I think, but more common as a verb. So I apologize. Bad note there. So what this verb means is to stimulate interest or curiosity. So you might hear somebody say, "Oh, reading this story piqued my interest in this era, this period of time. So I wanted to read more books, wanted to learn more about this topic." And again, you'll hear piqued one's interest, piqued one's curiosity quite a lot. So if you're doing any writing, I encourage you be careful with the three forms of pique. But I hope this brief introduction helps you with each of these words. Again, special thanks to David for making this suggestion. I thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.